Is also joining us this morning, given, of course, all that we're seeing in terms of the policy as well as the NBFC mess. Mr. Kumar, thanks so much for joining us. Good to have you with us on ET Now. With the RPI cutting rates,
Modi.
now for a cumulative 75 basis points and also with the change in stance, will you also look at cutting deposit rates and will we see a cut in MCLR?
No, I think if you see in the past also what we have done, that for loans related to the cash credit and overdraft. So, we have already passed on 25 basis point in the past, and rate for these borrowers are 8.25 against a MCLR of 8.45. Okay. And with the further cut of 25 basis point in the repo rate which happened yesterday, all our customers which avail the cash credit and the overdraft more than 1 lakh would start getting this benefit of 8% from 1st of July. So, straight away 25 basis point cut for all customers who are availing the cash credit and the overdraft. And for the other customers, our ELCO committee would review the MCLR and then we will take the call.
But could you quantify, sir, how much could be the quantum of your deposit as well as lending rate cut?
Like if you see MCLR, we have already passed on almost 10 basis point in the past from 8.55 to 8.45, and like I was saying with the CC and the OD, the rate cut has been to almost 30 basis point. And further 25 basis, straight 25 basis point cut would be passed on to the CCOD customers. So, they are the substantial chunk from our balance sheet.
Okay. Just to understand the lay of the land here, and please correct me if my interpretation is wrong, rates have come down by 75 bips if I add the last 3 credit policy, but the transmission so far after yesterday's rate cut, what you are indicating will not be more than 25 bips. Is that what you are trying to say?
No, basically like what happened that if you are saying 25, I am talking of 25 after the rate cut which happened yesterday. But if you see the rate cut for the 50 basis point which happened in the past, so we have already passed on 10 basis point for the MCLR and 30 basis point for the customers who are availing the cash credit and the overdraft. And similarly for the home loans also a 15 basis point cut has already been passed on.
Okay. So, if I add your numbers, sir, you are saying that about 65
and this 25 basis point cut would be
right. No, just to so that I don't get it wrong, you know, there's a lot of criticism which banks are drawing from everybody that they are not transmitting rates. But what you're telling us and what you're assuring us is that you've already passed on 35 bips. And you are looking at, I mean, what you are telling us is that out of the 75 bips rate cut which has come out, you would be able to pass out at least 65, right? And that's a fair bit of transmission. So, one should not freely criticize bank for not transmitting. Can I safely infer that?
Yeah, this has been done only by State Bank of India, and when I am saying 65 basis point, it is for those customers who are availing the cash credit and the overdraft. It is not for the other customers. So, depending on the type of facilities which you are enjoying from the bank and like the home loans, the cut is 15 basis point. Okay. And there may be a further cut, but our ELCO would take a call on that.
Sir, also wanted to just clarify, what about deposit rates? How much would they be brought down by?
No, if you see like in the system, there was a liquidity issue. Okay, and June the liquidity position is quite comfortable, like for the first time there is a surplus liquidity in the system, and with the assurance coming from Reserve Bank of India yesterday and the measures which they have already taken to infuse the liquidity, if the liquidity position continues to be comfortable, then we will take a call on the deposit rates. So, but we believe like if the liquidity position continues to be comfortable, then I think all the banks would be in a better position to cut the rates on the deposit side also going forward.
To take a complete detour and talk about something which we spoke about yesterday. We've learned that State Bank of India wants to raise capital, but there is no immediate hurry to raise the capital in next 6 to 8 weeks. In fact, State Bank of India has enough capital and they are looking at raising capital only at a higher level. Is that true?
Basically, like our capital raising decision has no relation with the rate, market rate which we are talking at, or at a higher level. It is more on the need base. So, what we believe that at present our capital can take care of almost 12% credit growth for the bank. So, what we are saying that after the declaration of the second quarter result, we will review the position, and if there is any potential for a credit growth of more than 12%, or if there is a need to build up a buffer, then definitely we would review the situation and may like to go for the capital raise.
I am going to ask this question once again so that I don't get it wrong, and please feel free to challenge my interpretation. What you are saying is right now there is no urgent need for you to raise capital, and you will only review a capital raising plan in the second half of the year, and if credit growth stays at 12%, which is what SBI has guided for, you may not raise capital for at least 2 quarters?
Right. Absolutely, your interpretation is correct. Yeah.
Okay. My next question to you is that the guidance of 12% on credit growth what State Bank of India has given, how much of that is largely based on a comeback in the corporate sector? You know, your retail book is doing well, you got a strong CASA, your retail franchise is great, but the turn for SBI will come when corporates they start borrowing. Are you getting early signs of that?
So, like corporate, if you see in the last year also, our corporate growth has happened mostly from the government entities. Okay, and with the after the budget coming in July, and when there would be a demand from the government sector, and if the investment from the private sector also start coming in. So, if there is a potential for corporate credit growth, say more than 11-12%, then definitely we need to review the situation.
Sure. Mr. Kumar, just to understand also from you the implications on your numbers going forward, given that you are seeing that transmission of rates, you know, the kind of impact on SBI in terms of growth on the deposit and CASA front, and also if loans are set to get cheaper, the kind of margin outlook also you're factoring in.
No, the way we do our say asset liability management, our margins would not be affected by any change in the interest rate on the lending or the deposit side. It would remain neutral, because we would be able to reduce on the lending side only if we are able to reduce on the deposit side. So, what we have done that we have linked our saving bank rate with the repo, and also have linked the loans of cash credit and the overdraft with the repo. So, it would be neutral to the margins going forward.
Treasury bump up for SBI, yields are below 7%. I mean, you would like to hear that ring below 7%?
Yeah, I think that is a wonderful news for us, because March the 10-year paper was almost 7.47 or 7.49 rather. So, I yield around say 7%, I think definitely it is a wonderful news for all of us.
I have to ask you on this entire talk of PSU consolidation. You know, State Bank of India subsidiaries have been merged. So, I don't think there is scope to consolidate anyone with SBI. There is one consolidation which already is on between Bank of Baroda and 2 other banks. Do you think in next year, 2 year, 3 years, we are in for a mega consolidation in the PSU banking sector, and that is the need of the hour, and that is something we will definitely see?
I think I also read only from the newspaper what is happening on the consolidation side, but I think yes, consolidation is something which would be good for the banking sector in the future.
But if consolidation does not happen, is there a problem?
The problem would be like banks with a balance sheet of a smaller size would be very difficult to manage in such a competitive environment where there is a need to reduce the cost. Okay. So, banks with a smaller balance sheet and there would be issues about the cost, there would be issues about the managerial bandwidth. So I think going forward, small banks profitability would be an issue.
Kumar, you know, we saw your clarification yesterday on Diwan housing. However, reports are suggesting that SBI has an estimated 8,800 crore rupee exposure to DHFL. If you could just confirm the total funds and non-fund based exposure to DHFL, and how much of this exposure can turn bad over FY20?
Like the first thing is we don't comment on the individual's exposure. Okay. And the clarification which we have given yesterday, we are saying that problems related to accounts like DHFL have already been taken into while giving the guidance for financial year 19-20. That has been factored while giving the guidance for the slippage as well as the credit cost.
Okay, fair point. My next question to you is that, do you think there is a very largish issue coming because of NBFCs and because of Diwan housing for the entire sector per se, or the current crisis in Diwan housing is not like IL&FS crisis which will open a can of worm? Do you think DHFL issue is more like an isolated case which will go through?
By and large, I would agree with your interpretation. Because what has happened, we need to segregate the different entities in the on the NBFC side. There are large number of entities which are really good, and they have been able to do a decent disbursement in the past also. Only issue was there was a liquidity issue for some of the NBFCs, but with the liquidity turning surplus into the system, I think the good NBFCs would not be having a problem in terms of the liquidity. Only issue would be depending on the entities, depending on the issues on the individual entities, there may be some issues. But I think we need to segregate the NBFCs depending on their qualities of the assets and depending on their liquidity problem.
Mr. Kumar, if I could get a comment from you on the NCLT resolutions as well, in terms of how they're panning out, what you're expecting for this year in terms of those resolutions. Also on the SME front as well, the kind of stress that we've seen build up, what's the kind of outlook on that front now?
Can you please repeat the second part? Which sector?
SME stress, the fact that we've seen a lot of stress on the small
SME,
yes.
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically if you see in the resolution side, I think number of resolution has happened. Only thing is that I think we are taking a little longer time because there are issues which has gone to the highest court of the country also. So that is taking some time. But we believe like resolutions would happen very soon, and if you compare in the past, I think the resolutions under the IBC has been quite fast as compared to the earlier system. So that would not be issue as such going forward. Only thing is we need to speed up, all of us need to speed up that part. And coming to the SME stress, I think that going forward with the better credit underwriting at the banks, with the better recovery mechanism in the banks, and with the use of the GST and the credit rating agencies, I think going forward stress in the SME sector would bound to come.
Closing comments. There is a slowdown which is there in autos, consumers, just about every major category. Now what we know is yesterday's data, what you know is what we know is the month-old data, what you know is yesterday's data. Are you getting a sense that there is a slight demand comeback which could happen and which has already started happening after the government in the election mandate? Because a lot of slowdown, Mr. Kumar, what we understand is psychological in nature, it is nothing structural in nature. When do you think the slowdown in categories like car, FMCG, when will it start coming back?
I think this is too early to say or reach to that conclusion, but with the improvement in the liquidity in the system, I think we would like to see some positives say impact on all these sectors in the coming month.
for the month of June is looking strong. Can you throw more light on that? Because that's a very important comment coming from you.
Let's see, like this is only, we are talking on 7th of June, too early. So, I think still there is some time. Let's see what happens in the remaining part of the June.
Okay. Mr. Kumar, really appreciate your time.